Welcome back, AMFishers. I'm Bill Georgopoulos, the host of the AMFisH fishing vlog. I've been asked this question on this topic that I'm going to do now on how to rig a tube jig properly. There's multiple different ways of rigging a tube jig. For those of you who are into fishing and not familiar with what a tube jig is, that there is a tube jig. It's got the little tentacles in the back, and then that body's hollow in there, and that's just a tube jig. And it resembles a crayfish when it sits in the bottom like this. This here is the jig head, just a lead jig head with a hook on it. Quick little easy way to do this. This is dry right now. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. I just have some actual fish attractant, so I can put the fish attractant just a little bit all over this to make it slippery. What ends up happening is if you're taking something dry, obviously like this, and trying to wedge it into this tube, it's not going to work as freely for you. Another little tip, typically what I do is, I'm just going to lean over here. I'll just wet the tube jig there with water, and I'll slowly start to stick it into that bottom. So what ends up happening, see that tension right there? If you squeeze the tube, see how the tension goes away, and slowly just keep feeding it towards, so it's kind of feeding towards the bottom. You don't want to rip through. If you rip through here, you're making a hole. If you rip through here, you're making a hole. You want this to poke out closer to the top. So I'm just going to slowly push that through. As soon as I see that tension, I'm just going to give it a little bit more slack there. And I want that hook pretty much right flush with the bottom. Completely flush as possible as I can get it. And once I have that, I can have that tension. All you do is push right through, and there goes the eye of the jig head. Tie your line directly here, and there's your little tube jig rigged. If you want to say this popped out too soon, you can always just kind of push it back up like that. I'll do that on camera. There you go, push it back up through the hole, and again, just reverse that process. Slowly pull it through. And there you go, the jig head's back out, the tube jig's there, and it's not torn up and it's not ripped up or anything like that. Again, feel free to use any type of scent that you have, whether it's a spray scent or just like I do, is soak it in a little bit of water. Once this gets wet, it's easier to get into that tube. I can try it completely dry. It's just a little tougher, and if you have a longer eye, that's this part here, say you have a little bit longer than that, it even makes that tension. So again, squeezing that tube, see if I can do it this way. If you squeeze that tube, I'm making it a lot. When it comes to the height, I'm gaining a little bit of height every time, every inch and centimeter I squeeze that like that, I'm going to gain a little bit of that. So that's how you rig them. Again, you can rig them Texas rig, wacky rig. I mean, there's various ways to rig a tube jig. Typically, you're going to do it like this though. This goes inside, it'll marry up in there like that, and this sits right here by the skirt. Once you cast that out, it sinks. It's going to sit like that right off the bottom. If you're dragging this, these tentacles are just going to flail around like that in the resistance of the water, and that's why they call it a tube jig. And actually, when you cast it too, it'll spiral. Let me just, without the hook in my hand, it'll just kind of spiral down like this as you cast it out and just drag it off the bottom. Typically a smallmouth bait, but again, depending on the rig that you use for them, you can catch largemouth, you can catch, other species of fish on them. But the purpose of this blog, again, was just to show you how to rig them properly. I've been asked it before. And there's various sizes of these jig heads here, weights as well, and various sizes of tube jigs. But if you wet it or grease it up with a little bit of fish scent, it's going to make it a lot easier every time sticking it in. You're not going to be compromising your tubes, and all of a sudden you make 3 or 4 holes because you're getting frustrated, and this now becomes useless. Throw it away, grab another one, and go through that process again. So that's how you rig up a tube jig. For those of you who had inquired with me on potentially doing this video, thank you. I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you at my next video blogs.